for the rim. Garnett on the slam follow. Using Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry.
No smooth ad intro today, I just gotta get this out of the way first. Thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. SeatGeek is the amazing app that provides you with the easiest way to buy tickets for almost any kind of event, which would most likely be sports related for you all. The app pulls tickets from all over the web and has them in one place to make purchasing one for your event really easy, and it also assures you'll be getting the best value for your ticket. While searching for your tickets, each one is ranked with a score from 1 to 100 that lets you know if you're getting a good deal or not for your purchase. On top of that, the app also provides you with the detailed view of what you would see from your seat before you even get there, which is extremely helpful. If you're interested in downloading this app, the links will be in both the comment section and highlighted in the description. If you're still on the fence, consider using my promo code DOM2K to get $20 off your first purchase. Championships matter. They don't mean everything, they don't totally define a player's legacy, but look around at every player who's ever chased greatness, every player in these, say, top 20 or so. Study the things that they said or did in their career and the moves that they made, and you're guaranteed to find that every year that they hit the court, their ultimate goal was to claim a title. But they're also circumstantial. Some titles just flat out mean more than others. All titles are not equal. So a player can win 5 of them, but if they had to get there by stacking the deck, then chances are those rings won't be as valued as a player that truly went through something to get them. So for LeBron's first 2 titles of Miami, it'd be cruelly unfair to say that he hadn't gone through anything. He almost didn't make the finals in 2012, and if the 2013 scenario was replayed 100 times, the Spurs would have won 99 of them. Still, as it pertains to LeBron's situation and his journey, there are no amount of titles in Miami that would have completed his story. There would have always been that one sticking point that said, yeah, he won multiple championships, but he had to ditch his original plan and team up with the best players from his draft to do it. He promised he wouldn't stop until he brought one to Cleveland, but instead, he took the path of least resistance. So during the summer of 2014, he truly did make the right decision to return home. Miami had provided him with a winning culture and also battle tested him. What he learned from those 2 titles helped him evolve as a player and gave him the tools he needed to take a team with no winning culture to the promised land. And the amazing part about it is, that may very well have happened on his first try in 2015 if he would have had the proper team to go to war with. The Cavs were similar to Miami in some ways, different in others. On one hand, he was without a doubt joining 2 amazing players, both of which were all-stars on their own. On the other, Kyrie nor Love had ever been to the playoffs, nor had they even had any regular season success. It's not a knock on them, most of that was due to either injuries or just not having the team around them, but regardless, that meant that LeBron was the official captain of this ship. It wasn't like in Miami where Bosh had been to the playoffs and Wade had already had a finals MVP. LeBron was the only resemblance of success on this team, and he'd have to install the championship DNA on his own to get them anywhere. But the good news was, if he could deliver on his promise while also immediately lifting Cleveland from a bottom-feeding franchise to their first ever title, that feat would be invaluable to his case for GOAT. In what was a near repeat of his first season in Miami, Cleveland struggled out of the gate trying to mesh the talents of 3 stars. But after a couple of trades and more time on the floor together, it wasn't long before they were clear-cut favorites in the East. Meanwhile, his next obstacle was already brewing. It just so happened that at the same time LeBron had renewed his goals to bring a title to Cleveland, the NBA's next dynasty was in its infancy out west. People had heard of Steph Curry, they knew the Warriors were a great upstart team, but absolutely no one picked them to be the NBA's next superpower, especially not heading into the 2015 season. But the more important note was that they were in their infancy, meaning they were still beatable. Curry wasn't shooting consistently from the logo yet, they weren't a collection of experienced superstars, they were just a really good team that played really good basketball, not much different from what LeBron had been facing for the last 2 years in June. And for most of the 2015 season, the 2 teams were seen as equals, especially once Cleveland handed them what was only their 11th loss of the season heading into March. And with the East at a low point while the Warriors were dominating the league, anyone could have seen what LeBron was up against next. Except that they couldn't quite see everything he was up against.
And right there as Olynyk pulls on that arm, that shoulder pops out. Tough to look at, and he ran right to the line.
Kyrie Irving hurting himself on this play. Is obviously landing awkwardly. He was grabbing his knee and limping as he went up.
All in one fatal swoop, the Cavs had gone from legit championship contenders to a near replica of LeBron's situation from 2009 and 2010. a team that could play great defense led by LeBron, but ultimately that wasn't built to finish the job. Nobody thought a team starting Matthew Dellavedova, Tristan Thompson, and Timothy Mozgov would even be capable of staying in a game with the Golden State Warriors. It wasn't so much that they were terrible players as much as it was who they were filling in for and at the stage they were filling in for them. They were very capable defenders and rebounders, but LeBron starting with two non-shooting, non-offensively skilled big men was going to be a serious death sentence, or at least it should have been.
Clutch free throws from Matthew Dellavedova. Iguodala finds Curry. Curry on the drive, step back, puts it up. Air ball, James the rebound. Remaining. Golden State out of timeouts. 2-point game. They find Curry. Curry ahead to Thompson, knocked away, stolen by Thompson, and the NBA Finals are tied at 1 game apiece. An inspiring bounce-back win for the Cavaliers.
The 2015 Finals were a combination of two themes from LeBron's career. One where he was so great that he could trick you into thinking his inferior roster had a chance to win it all, and another where he'd become the do-it-all killer from his years in Miami. At that point, the task was simple. 4 wins are all that separates Cleveland from its first NBA championship, regardless of if your teammates were multiple-time All-Stars or bench warmers. Get it done. And by applying what he learned from his Miami days, he was able to get pretty damn close. We didn't see the LeBron that got tentative in Game 6 against Boston in 2010 because he realized he was alone, or the one from 2011 that was afraid to try to take over because it wasn't his team. We saw the LeBron that was closer to Jordan and Kobe in mentality. The one that didn't care what his stats were or what mistakes he might make, only that he achieved his goal by any means necessary. And through 3 games, he'd already done the impossible. Without a team that fit his style of play and without another star to take any kind of pressure off, he'd almost single-handedly backed this 67-win Warrior team into the corner. He had them on the ropes. Up 2-1 with Game 4 at Cleveland. No team had ever come back from a 3-1 deficit in the NBA Finals. These Golden State kids were mere rookies. They hadn't been deep in the playoffs before, yet alone a finals. If he could just put his all into winning this one game, the Warriors would likely be too rattled to continue. But as was a frequent theme whenever LeBron got to this point in his first stint in Cleveland, reality simply set in. Through the first 3 games of that series, LeBron had put up some of the finest finals performances ever off of brute strength and sheer will, averaging 41 points, 8.3 assists, and 12 rebounds. Against this team with the support he had, he was literally at the brink of his powers and it could only be sustained for so long. He had another great rebounding and passing night, but a late run by Golden State put the game away and James couldn't carry the offense to bridge the gap as he only scored 20 points. That was all the daylight the Warriors needed as they went on to claim the title in 6 games, overwhelming the Cavs with their scoring. When it was all said and done, James had managed 3 40-point games and 2 30-point games. His averages of 35.8 points, 8.8 assists, and 13.3 rebounds nearly led him to being the only All-Star on a team that would have beaten a 67-win team for the title. But back to where this all started, championships matter, but they aren't everything. As far as anything that could have been reasonably done by a player to take down that Golden State team, he did it. It wasn't like 2007 where he was part of the problem. He'd been able to put this team of misfits and bench players on his back to the point that there was a moment where it seemed that Cleveland could win. And for any player being looked at as a potential GOAT, that's realistically all that could have been asked.
You can't replace 2 All-Stars. There's no team in NBA history been able to to win a championship with 2 of the All-Stars not playing. It was unfortunate for us to not be able to be at full strength on the biggest stage. I tried as much as I could, and everyone else down from myself tried as hard as we could, but we were going against a team that had more health, and was clicking on all cylinders at the right time.
Adversity is what separates the real greats from the pretenders. Every all-time great could play the game, but only the greatest among even them could overcome adversity time and time again, and that's where they proved that they truly belong. And for LeBron getting ready to try to write the final chapter in his case for GOAT, 2016 was perhaps the most amount of adversity he could have realistically been expected to overcome, but at the time, it didn't even seem possible. Golden State heard all the talk about their championship being phony. If they had quickly taken care of business and swept Cleveland once Irving went down, then people would have thought they were legit. But the fact that it took them 6 games to defeat LeBron James and role players had many raising their eyebrows. Nobody questioned the Spurs in 07 because they technically broke down Cleveland to show the world that they weren't even in the same tier. The Warriors, however, still had much to prove. And for a total of 88 games, they left nothing to chance. Curry had emerged with a season so spectacular that it made us forget all about what LeBron had done just 3 years earlier in 2013. His player efficiency rating landed right behind LeBron's 2013 season as the 8th best in league history. He shot the ball as if he were by himself in one of those summer workout videos. He claimed the NBA's first unanimous MVP award, which clearly should have went to LeBron in 2013. And even worse, the rest of the Warriors got better as well. Klay and Draymond emerged as legitimate all-star players, and as a team, they were effectively smoking teams out of the building in 3 quarters or less on their way to becoming the greatest regular season team of all time. It had been 20 years since the Bulls' 72-win season. They were the gold standard, and it was one of those records that was likely to never be broken. And as if it were just fate that LeBron would have to take the hardest road possible, this all happened right after he returned to Cleveland to renew his goal. But as usual, the expectations only added to the pressure. Here's LeBron looking to be the greatest of all time, and this year he's got a healthy team around him. No one was blaming him for the 2015 loss because he'd exhausted his ability trying to win that without proper help. However, with the return of Kyrie and Love, he was back on the hot seat. There was a full year of the media building hype toward a healthy rematch, and the logic went that if LeBron took them to 6 by himself, then there'd be no excuse to not at least contend with them this time. Only, Golden State had gotten even better and was now being considered for the greatest team of all time. Yes, LeBron has to bring Cleveland its first title, and he has to do so by taking down the greatest team of all time with the unanimous MVP. There's the expectation. But again, reality.
To Iguodala. Barbosa up top, Thompson for 3. Puts it in. Golden State, what an impressive performance. Shot clock at 7. Curry fakes, puts up a 3. Bang! Stephen Curry from downtown. It's a 10-point game. And the Golden State Warriors, with a huge win on the road, take a commanding 3-1 lead in these NBA Finals.
A 3-1 deficit. The defending champions, the greatest team of all time with the greatest shooter of all time, are up 3-1 with home court advantage in an NBA Finals series. LeBron is about to take his 5th Finals loss, and worse, he's on the verge of being replaced as the best player in the league. Yes, in 2016, Curry had made a significant push for that title. With LeBron having lost out on the MVP to him twice in a row and being on the verge of losing the title to him twice in a row, this time with a healthy team, there wouldn't be much left to say. On top of that, this is a Warriors team that went from a first round out to, quote, the greatest team ever all in 2 years. And it didn't look like they were slowing down anytime soon, so maybe LeBron would never have a chance to fulfill his promise to Cleveland. Or maybe you didn't understand that Miami had made a monster out of him.
James fakes, James drives, James finishes, and the foul. And a chance for a 3-point play to tie the game. To the races, drive past Irving, gets inside, layup blocked by James. Steps back, he tries another 3. That's good, LeBron James from downtown. Road victory for the Cleveland Cavaliers as the NBA Finals will return to Cleveland on Thursday night.
Game 5 felt more like a formality than anything. With the Warriors going back to their arena with the 3-1 lead where they'd barely lost in a year, many people would have taken their chances playing the lottery than betting on a comeback. But LeBron and Irving both poured in 41 points, meanwhile James tossed in 16 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks to go with that. There goes another beastly elimination game and yet another all-time performance with all the pressure in his court. How many players in history would have even been motivated to go all out in that kind of bleak situation? And then, from the very start of Game 6, it was clear that there was going to be a 7th. The game was never even close, and LeBron became the first player in history to drop 40 points in consecutive elimination games. This set up the final test. LeBron had played in Game 7s before, but nothing like this. Most of the pressure was on Golden State to not choke now, but it was very likely that this would be the last chance LeBron would have to bring a title back to Cleveland. There were a lot of circumstances besides his greatness that even allowed this Game 7 to happen, dating back to the Warriors' first round in that year's playoffs, and if James couldn't finish them here, there were no guarantees any kind of fate would ever be on his side again. He'd proven he could put up all-time performances already, so if he could just complete this final task, no matter what happened for the remainder of his career, his story would be complete.
Curry helps out, Smith, pass right through the hands of Curry, James! The two-handed slam.
I'ma call him Clay, I'ma call him dunked on.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
Great pass by Curry, running hard by Iguodala, and superhuman defensive recovery by LeBron James.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown! And the Cavaliers by 3. Tip taken by Spades, final seconds. It's over! It's over! Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Game 7 from 2016 doesn't need words. It doesn't need a recap. The moments, more than any other moments in NBA history, speak for themselves. After 13 years in the NBA, after countless failures in Cleveland, after being hated for a time by seemingly any and everyone not in Miami, LeBron James had not only delivered on his promise to Cleveland, but he'd officially earned his seat at the table to be talked about as the greatest of all time. There could be entire books written about his journey to this moment, but to make it short and sweet, this one ring is worth more than both of his Heat rings combined. He'd exerted every last ounce of energy toward this one goal. He'd created one of the most historic moments in NBA history with the block, and he'd led the Cavaliers to an improbable comeback against what would have been confirmed as the greatest team of all time that night. Years later, I still struggle to find the words to describe this game, the boost that it gave to his case, how impossible it was to even imagine a 3-1 comeback in the finals, yet alone against the likes of a team in Golden State that we'd never seen. The best way I can describe it is to say that it was the game that unofficially ended LeBron's career. Unofficially is the correct word here because that night made everything else that would go on to happen in his career a simple extra. It didn't matter that he would go on to become the first player in history to average a triple-double in the finals against what officially became the most talented team of all time just to lose. It didn't matter that he'd again be swept in one of the most lopsided finals series in history talent-wise. After that night, all he needed to do was continue to be excellent because he'd officially done more than enough to sit at the table with the greatest. He'd officially had a case for the greatest of all time. And that's why I now understand his move to LA. For the last year, I anticipated his second departure from Cleveland because I thought for the remainder of his career he'd never want to play anywhere that he didn't have a legitimate chance to win a championship. But shortly after he signed with the Lakers, I realized that he just understood that he had nothing left to prove to anyone. Simply put, his story has been written, and the rest is just the epilogue. Anything he might do, mainly another championship, would likely just confirm him as the greatest of all time. So after 2016, that's what he's been up to. He completed his second tenure in Cleveland with a total of 8 straight finals made, something that's been unheard of since the Bill Russell days. He's dropped in another round of incredible and legendary playoff performances. And again, he nearly got a game off the Warriors in 2018 in what was quickly becoming a repeat of Allen Iverson's moment from 2001. I love that game because it sums up one of the biggest themes of his career, simply never backing down from Goliath. It took 4 parts to do LeBron's case for GOAT. Although he's already got one, it's somehow still being written. Here's a guy that's nearing 20 years in the league and he's still every bit as good as he's always been. He doesn't always display that 2013 athleticism, although he's still very capable of it, and he's also very much capable of another MVP, and with the right people around him, maybe another championship sometime down the road. He could end up as the all-time leading scorer. He could end up with a championship and finals MVP on 3 different teams. He could end up with 30,000 points, 10,000 assists, and 10,000 rebounds. He could end up the greatest of all time.
I feel confident because I'm the best player in the world. It's simple.